Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me. You are always most welcome. Today, no, we're not going to do a review of the Sea Harrier from Kinetic. Nice kit though it is, which I've only just started because of this problem with my hand and my arm. I'm just not getting into the modelling at the moment. I'm dead keen to do it, but physically I'm struggling to motivate myself to get through the pain threshold, but that's another story. No, what we're going to talk about today, he says, used his bad arm, we're going to talk about a very interesting publication which I spotted on eBay about a week ago. Sea Harriers of the Falklands War. Sounds like I'm getting dive bombed by helicopters at the moment actually. Sea Harriers of the Falklands War. Now, this publication is kind of unique in my experience. Basically, I never saw it in the W.H. Smiths, although I'm sure they must have had it at some point. But what it is, it's kind of a blow-by-blow account of every actual Harrier that actually took part in the campaign. So, this is probably not going to make for the best TV, actually, I'm showing you this, but it's quite glossy. But basically, there's a forward by Dave Morgan, who's the top scoring pilot. I've talked about him before. Top scoring pilot in the Falklands campaign. And it talks about everything about the Harriers. So it shows them painting, repainting the roundels, getting rid of the white part of the roundels, of course. And of course, they had to repaint some of them in the barley grey. There are variations of different greys are actually used in the campaign. I'm just going to get more light. Here we go. And it talks here about preparing them and how they weatherproof them, which we've talked about before as well in my previous vids. Dave Morgan has provided several photos of his own. HMS Sheathbill, which of course was the temporary landing strip, which was produced at Port San Carlos Water. Some great maps of the Falklands itself. And then it basically gives you every single aircraft that took part and all the actions, the losses. Sorry, that's the Harrier losses, and the losses of the various Argentine aircraft, including many of the Mirages. But look at the numbers, 6 Harriers lost, and then we've got a lot of Argentine aeroplanes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 28 I make it, according to that. That's a lot of planes and we lost 6, so there you go. None of ours were lost in air-to-air combat, and that's very important. Actually, I should stress that before I flick over the page. Ours were all accidents and failures. And unfortunately it doesn't actually say in the graphic, but I can tell you that there were a couple had failures, there was a mid-air collision, a couple got taken down by ground fire, so that really counts for all of them. But what's interesting about this book and what makes it sort of unique, as I mentioned, is that it's big, beautiful graphics, and it literally does go into telling you about every single aircraft and the engagements it took part in. The 3 squadrons, 801, 809, 800 Squadron, and who flew them. And it makes you realise when you get into this that there are a number of anomalies, things that you don't necessarily realise. And I'm going to try and find a perfect example for you in a second. Obviously some are on Hermes, some were on Invincible, the 2 carriers. Some of them were 809 that came on the Atlantic conveyor before it was hit. Luckily they got the aircraft off before the Atlantic conveyor got hit by the famous Exocet attack. But it literally does catalogue every single plane, its actions, who flew it. Absolutely remarkable. The one I'm looking for, which it is here, I just haven't quite got to it yet, it's going to talk about Sharkey Ward and something that he raised in his book, which I thought was interesting, didn't know about. So also you can see the subtle differences in these colourings, talking about the different blues, pale blue, regular blue. Here we go. Now then, this bottom aircraft here, 004, this is actually later in 1989, but it took part in the campaign, a very big role in the campaign. And the reason I wanted to sort of highlight it, and there is another shot of it here, there we go, another shot of it here, on Invincible, here we go, so this is in the South Atlantic. Sharkey Ward mentions this aircraft most people who do models, and this is what this is really all about, is to give support to modelers, this kind of data book. Most of us, I can tell you erroneously, and I was one of those that was erred, if you like, think that Sharkey Ward flew in 006, which is, he often did, I think he flew that one the most. But his favourite was 004, and the reason it was his favourite was he claimed in his book that it had superior sensitivity on the Blue Fox radar, and it just had slightly... the Ferranti guys had been over from the UK as part of the support during the campaign, and they'd managed to tune it up better in 004, and I think it wasn't just the Blue Fox, it was another element of the radar system. Maybe it was something to do with the sensitivity and the electronics pack that supported the Sidewinder acquisition for locking onto enemy planes. He said that it was noticeably better in 004, and I think behind the scenes they were secretly not fighting over it, but trying to get into 004 because they knew, and he certainly knew. He said it was noticeably better, and you could fire the missiles from further out. You got a much clearer image on the Blue Fox radar from a greater distance. So that was actually the favourite. So Sharkey Ward preferred to fly 004. Didn't always get his way, and it will tell you here that John Farley flew it, obviously Sharkey Ward, and it does name a couple of other Broadwater. Yeah, Broadwater, Dave Broadwater. And it names all the pilots and the different engagements they get into. It talks about Sharkey Ward having a gun battle with one of the Argentinians in it, and so on. So it's not like in the US Navy, and I'm not trying to generalise here because I'm sure that they have to rotate them a bit as well, but I think generally you get the name of the pilot on the side of the aircraft, and they tend to stick to one aircraft whenever possible, apart from maintenance times. Well, that wasn't the case in the Falklands. It was just like a shift system, and they were rotated just depending on availability and the maintenance, because obviously they were having a lot of servicing. It was quite an aggressive environment to be in. So don't think of one aircraft as being wedded to one pilot, is all I'm saying. It's something that they talk about in here. But this is a wonderful book in terms of the graphics and the detail and the colours. Look at this. So for modellers, this is really something of a treasure trove. There's 006, Sharkey Ward's usual aircraft at the bottom. I'm not sure how well this is coming out because they're quite dark, some of these plates, good plates. But yeah, you can see that it's better, isn't it? Do it that way. Yeah, it's really quite a helpful thing in terms of the subtle differences in finishing and colours, the markings on the tails, etc. And then it gets in 007. Look, there you go, 007, Mr. Bond's plane. And then it starts talking about 809, which of course was the planes that came down on, as I mentioned, on the Atlantic conveyor. Here's 009, that's another one of Sharkey Ward's team, and 801 Squadron. Here we go, 809 Squadron. So these are effectively the reinforcement, the relief Sea Harriers that were brought down from the UK, and they came down, as I say, on the Atlantic conveyor, and they got them off only about 7 days before it was sunk by the Exocet missile, which is very unfortunate, of course. And it says here you go, so this is talking about integrated into 801 on Invincible, or they were integrated into 800 Squadron on Hermes. I'm just trying to find one where that's the case. Perhaps I haven't got that yet. Bear with me. Seems that a lot of them are on Invincible. Yeah, here we go. 809, this is the aircraft that were integrated into Hermes as 800 Squadron, I should say. So it's really worth getting this book if you're interested in Sea Harriers and you want to actually model one. It goes into remarkable details about the engagements in the detail above, the plates, illustrations. Gives a lot of data about what happened to each one and what happened subsequent to the conflict as well, because some of them carried on for years afterwards, and some were modified into effectively into FA2 spec. There's a lot of that went on, sort of post modifications that sort of upgraded them to the latest spec. It's a really remarkable book, I've got to say, and for anybody that wants to model Sea Harriers, I think I would recommend this to you. So that's all it is. It's not it's not trying to tell any stories about anything wider in the conflict. It's really just literally a cataloguing, if you will, of these remarkable airplanes and how they were used, how they were modified, various incidents involving these individual aircraft, and just basically tells the tale of how they went to war. Anyway, just you're going to ask me how much it costs. It's £9.99, that's £10. It's kind of not a magazine, not a book, it's somewhere in between. But it's produced, it's from Chris Sandham-Bailey, and it is actually, I'm just trying to see who it's actually published by. It doesn't seem to say. What's the M stand for? Morton Media Group it's published by. Anyway, what I'll do is, I was going to say, is there an ISBN number, but there doesn't seem to be. So I've got a horrible feeling this is quite a short run production, this book. But you can certainly pick it up on eBay. I picked it up quite easily. I just spotted it by accident, to be honest, and I put some Sea Harrier searching, and this came up as part of searching for something else. So I would strongly recommend you take a look at that. If you're interested in the Falklands War, you're doing a model, or you're planning to, I don't think you can go wrong with it, to be quite honest. I'm going to give that, it only shows the aircraft in sort of side view, so I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. But it's a very useful resource, and you can't have too many, can you really? So there we go. I'll bring back the Harrier in the background, just to be appropriate. 105 obviously is the one here. And you'll recall, of course, it's quite a selection that's available in the decals from the kinetic kit. So again, those two go together. Perfect marriage of two products, really. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. Thank you very much for joining me. Please stay tuned. More things coming up in the near future that I think you'll find of great interest. If this is your bag and you share passion for modelling and similar things, aviation, etc. Thanks a lot. In the meantime, until next time, take care of yourselves. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.